How is it going, everybody? You're watching Then About Tech, and iOS 18 is finally out, and just like with every major software update, a lot of people have battery drain issues. So in this video, I'm gonna teach you how to save a ton of battery in iOS 18. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is actually open up the App Store and then tap on the top right hand corner on your profile picture, and then right here on Account, pull all the way down until you see the spinning wheel, because what we're doing here is checking for app updates. As you can see, we have 40 app updates on my iPhone right here. And the reason why this is important is when we have a major software update, not only iOS updates, but the applications themselves, your apps, they also need to update to become compatible with this new iOS version. And when they are not compatible, battery will suffer a lot, and that's why we have so many, because since we're here on the first days of iOS 18, pretty much every single app on my iPhone and on your iPhone will release update versions. So then it's super important that you go ahead, tap here on update all, so then you get the newest, the latest versions of all your applications already compatible with iOS 18, and this will save you a ton of battery. Next, let's go ahead and tap on settings, and then scroll a bit down, and if you already have Apple Intelligence on your iPhone, so if you are already running at least iOS 18.1, and if you have a compatible iPhone, I have to say a few things about Apple Intelligence. So when you use all of the new features of Apple Intelligence, like the writing tools, like recording phone calls, recording voice memos and transcribing the whole thing, and of course using the cleanup tool to remove items and people from photos, and pretty much everything else related to Apple Intelligence, you are actually draining your battery by a lot, because Apple Intelligence first is still on beta, and like every beta feature, it drains your battery, and second, it's on device. So pretty much every single task, every single activity that you're seeing in Apple Intelligence is actually happening on device, on your iPhone. Instead of running on a cloud and doing the math in the cloud and getting the results on your iPhone, no. Every single task is pretty much being done on your iPhone. And because of that, it uses a lot of your processing power, therefore your battery. So I'm not saying here like don't use Apple Intelligence. Of course, that's not the point, but please keep in mind that every time you're using Apple Intelligence, your battery is draining quite a lot. Now let's talk about another new iOS 18 feature, which is music haptics. So if you have the feature available and you tap on play and you're listening to a music or pretty much any song on Apple Music, your iPhone vibrates with the flow, with the music. Mine is vibrating at the moment, even though there's no volume, but it is vibrating right here. And of course, when your iPhone vibrates, it uses the Taptic engine, so it drains your battery. If you want to disable this feature, go ahead, open up the settings app, and then let's come back here, and then I'm gonna use the search bar just to make it easier, and then let's go for music haptics. So music haptics, as you can see, which is an accessibility feature, tap on it, and then as you can see, let it load, and we have here music haptics, and it's available for Apple Music, and it will be available for other apps as well. If you want to save battery, disable this feature. Now let's get back to settings and then battery, and let it load, because we have to talk about charging. This is a brand new section available only on a few iPhone models in iOS 18, which now allows us to choose a charging limit for our device. So before, we could only choose optimized battery charging on or off, which is a feature that still exists, as you can see, but now we also have the possibility to choose exactly when we want our charging to stop. The exact percentage we want the battery to stop charging. So let's say, for example, I want to set to 80%, which is actually the recommendation. This means that when I plug my iPhone to the charger, it'll charge only to 80% and stay there. It'll maintain there. And even though this will not actually save your battery, because what we're doing here is adjusting our charging percentages, what this will do is help you in the long run. So if you use the charging limit and choose 80%, your battery will last longer in the long run. Therefore, you will have a better battery life throughout the next months and years of owning this iPhone. So that's super important. Of course, if you don't have this option on your iPhone model, I super recommend that you still use the feature optimized battery charging, because even though it will not keep your iPhone at 80% and maintain there like this feature right here, but it'll maintain at 80% for as many hours as possible before completing the full charge to 100%. So either choose optimized battery charging, or if you can, limit at 80%. Now let's talk about widgets, because they have changed the way they work in iOS 18, and it's much easier to use and manage your widgets. So for example, you can tap on any compatible and available app, tap and hold, and then can go ahead here and transform it into a widget, as you can see, which is very nice, very handy. I really like it. But please keep in mind that widgets are battery drainers, especially the ones that are constantly updating, constantly getting new information and showing to you. So like this one, for example, for the stocks and currencies and stock market and so on. It's constantly updating and constantly giving me information. So if you can, avoid using widgets if you want to save your battery. So go ahead, tap here, and then just remake him as an app. Now let's get back to our settings and then tap on cellular, because we're now going to talk about cellular data and 5G. First things first, go ahead here and tap on this second option, as you can see, cellular data options. And then this is super important. First, voice and data. Tap on it and check if you have 5G on. This is honestly the worst scenario when we're talking about battery saving, especially because we also have 5G standalone. So as you can see, 5G standalone actually uses 5G for all cellular activities, just like 5G on. It means that every single time that there is 5G available, it's gonna use it. And the problem with this is 5G uses way more battery life than 4G and way more battery life than Wi-Fi. So you have to keep that in mind. My recommendation is disable 5G standalone and use 5G auto or 4G, because with 5G auto, it'll actually manage automatically. So if you're doing some activity that doesn't really require high speed, it's gonna switch to 4G, which will help you a lot with battery saving. Please keep in mind, I'm not the one saying this, Apple is saying this. As you can see, this may impact battery life. Use this to optimize your battery life. So it has a lot to do with your battery. Now let's come back, because this other option called data mode, it's super important as well. So as you can see, we have three options: allow more data on 5G, standard, and low power mode. As you can imagine, allow more data on 5G will pretty much prefer 5G for all your connections and data usage. So really bad for a battery. Standard will automatically choose actually how they want to spend and how they want to use your cellular data. So it's a good option. And low data mode, as you can see, will reduce your cellular data. So my recommendation is leave as standard, or if you want to really save, low data mode. Now let's come back once again and scroll down just a bit, because this is super important. Those two options, iCloud Drive and iCloud Backup. So the way this works is iCloud Drive and iCloud Backup are available to use on cellular, meaning that you'll be able to upload and download documents from your Files app and really use the Files app in your iCloud Drive completely and fully with cellular. In iCloud Backup, the same story. So if you don't have Wi-Fi available, it'll go ahead and back up your iPhone through 5G, which is terrible, not only for a data plan, but of course for your battery. So my recommendation is go ahead and disable iCloud Backup, especially if you have available Wi-Fi in your home, in your office, so then it'll always back up with Wi-Fi. And if you can, disable iCloud Drive Cellular as well. But please keep in mind that if you do that and you are out and about, you won't be able to download and open documents that are not on your iPhone. Now, on the very first page of our settings, let's scroll down until we get to display and brightness, because we have to talk about a few things right here. First, light and dark mode. I've talked about this many times, but it's always important to confirm. So, dark mode will in fact save your battery, simply because iPhones with OLED displays, they reduce the amount of light they actually emit when you're using dark mode. When you use light mode, it lights up the whole display. It's as easy as that, as visual as that. But please keep in mind that this will only save your battery if you have an OLED iPhone, and most iPhones nowadays are OLED. So if you have an iPhone 12 or newer, your iPhone has an OLED display. If you have an older iPhone than that, you will have to have an iPhone 11 Pro, 10s, or 10. The others, all other models, they don't have an OLED display, and they don't benefit from this, okay? So that's very important. Now, moving on, we have to talk about True Tone as well. This feature that actually makes our display a little bit yellower, right? Right here, it pretty much won't change simply because every light here in the studio is really white, but generally it will make your display pretty yellow. And this is a battery drainer simply because it's gonna be constantly using this sensor right here, the light sensor, to adjust the brightness and adjust the color of your display to match your environment. So since it's constantly changing and analyzing and choosing and picking up the correct colors, it's actually gonna drain your battery. So I do recommend that you disable this feature. On top of that, we have to talk about auto lock. This is super important. The way I'm using it on my iPhone is the worst way possible. I would recommend 1 or 2 minutes because it's super common that we actually leave our iPhone on the desk, on the table, on the couch, and then we go to another room, we forget about it, and then our iPhone is like that, draining your battery because the display is on for many, many minutes, sometimes hours, right? So my recommendation is like 1 or 2 minutes, and then after that time, with an inactive display, if you're not using it, it's gonna actually turn off the display automatically. And last but not least, in display and brightness, we have to talk about always on display. Even though in theory the always on display doesn't drain your battery by that much, it does. In reality, it sure does. So my recommendation is use always on display, but maybe don't use the wallpaper and don't use the notifications. So then when you lock your iPhone, or if it locks automatically, like with the setting we just changed, it's gonna be dark, it's gonna be black, which in my opinion looks great actually, just with basic information like do not disturb, date and time, and your widgets right here. Of course, if you wanna save even more battery, just remove those widgets as well. It'll save a ton. Getting back to our settings, scrolling down quite a bit until we get to privacy and security, and then we have to talk about location services. The first thing you have to worry about is please check if you have applications that are using your location always. And it's super easy to check in iOS 18. If you come back here, you can see location services, one always 57 while using. My recommendation is have them all as while using or off. Don't have always like for any application because this will drain your battery. So if you have one or more applications set as always, go ahead and take a look at them. So go ahead and look and see the one that is. As you can see, I have one on my iPhone. Which one it is? So if I go ahead here and look for it, there we go. It's the Meta View app, which is set to always. I'm gonna leave this application set to always simply because it's my smart glasses application, the Ray-Ban Meta application, and it works perfectly when you leave as always because it's constantly sending my photos and my videos that I take with my smart glasses to my iPhone. So that's why that's the only app that I have on my iPhone set to always. For you, you can go ahead and check if you have any of your applications. You can tap on it and then set to while using the app, or never if you don't need the application to actually use your location. Don't be afraid to choose never, okay? If you have an application that you don't see a point of it using or knowing your location, no problem at all, tap on it and set to never. On this very first page on location services, let's scroll all the way down, actually keep scrolling until we get to system services, as you can see right here. And I have a couple things that I want to talk about. First, you can disable those two very first options, so alerts and shortcuts automations, Apple Pay merchant identification. You don't need any of those two. The other ones you can leave on. Right here on product improvement, you don't need to help Apple improve their products by showing you improving their products by sharing your location. This makes no sense. So you can disable improve maps, routing and traffic, and iPhone analytics. This is just information that you are sharing with Apple, not for your own use. So it makes no sense. Okay. And last but not least, we have to talk about significant locations. We have to use Face ID or the passcode to access it. And what I wanted to do is actually disable significant location and turn it off. The way this works is Apple will be constantly storing your significant location. So the places you generally spend most time at. So your house, your work, your school. So it's going to be storing on your iPhone and actually creating this database of your information and your locations. And it's going to use that data for a bunch of stuff, including optimized battery charging. That's how your iPhone will know when to use optimized battery charging, because of significant locations. So I do recommend that you disable this feature if you don't use optimized battery charging, because if you do use it, if you like the feature, unfortunately you will have to have it on. Since I don't use it, since I generally use the 80% limit, I don't want significant location. I don't want Apple storing the places I generally spend my time in, and of course this drains a lot of your battery. Now let's get back to our settings and then tap on the search and go for background. I'm sure you have heard of this. Background app refresh. Let's tap on this option, and my recommendation, guys, is you go ahead here, tap on background app refresh, and then you choose between those three options. My recommendation is choose for Wi-Fi or off. Because the way this is gonna work is when you have this enabled, like you can see I have it enabled right here, all of these applications will be constantly downloading, updating, and actually using your data in the background for them to work and keep updated even if you're not using them. So let's say for example, Airbnb. I'm not using Airbnb. It's been days since I've opened this app, but it's constantly in the background, updating, getting new offers, updating the land page, and so on. So when I open Airbnb, it's gonna show me an updated page. But the thing is, I don't want that. So I don't want every single app from my iPhone to be constantly updating in the background and downloading stuff. So my recommendation is you either go ahead and turn it off if you don't want this to happen, or at least choose Wi-Fi, because as you can tell, Wi-Fi saves your battery, so it's only gonna update in the background when you're connected to Wi-Fi. So that's your choice. Again, back on our settings, let's go ahead, tap on search, and go for mail. Let's talk about the mail app for a while. Tap on it. Right here we see all your accounts, so tap on mail accounts, as you can see, and right here we have fetch new data. The way this works is very simple. This is how your new mail is gonna come through, and by default is set to push. And what push means is it's gonna be constantly checking with all of those servers, so Gmail, iCloud, and so on, if there's any new mail. Every single time, every second, is going to be checking backwards and forwards. That's push, which is by default, which drains your battery a lot. The other option that you have is actually to use fetch. So if you disable push, it's not going to be using push anymore, and you can choose right here how often your emails, so your accounts, will be checking with the server for new mail. So for example, manually, so only when you open the app it's gonna check, or hourly, or every 30 minutes, or every 50 minutes. If you set to every 15 minutes, I think it's more than enough, right, for your emails to be actually checking for new stuff, right, for your accounts to be checking with the server, and you're already gonna save a ton of battery. So make sure to disable push. Go ahead here, check if any of the other accounts are set to push, set everything to fetch, and right here use fetch for 15 or 30 minutes. If you tap once again on search and look for Safari, we have to talk about a new feature from iOS 18. If we scroll down, it's actually called preload top hit. And the way this works is if you search for anything on Google, that very first website, which is the top hit, will automatically be preloaded for you. So if you disable this feature, it'll actually help you saving battery, because I think it makes no sense. Every single Google search that you make, that very first result, the top hit, will automatically be loaded in the background. So it's constantly gonna be like wasting a lot of your battery and data. If we tap here on settings and then go ahead and tap on general and then software update, you'll see right here one of the most important tips. As you can see, I am up to date. I am running iOS 18.1. And what I want you to do is constantly do this and constantly check for newer iOS versions. Simply because, for the same reason that I've just explained, that you have to constantly update your applications, you also have to constantly update iOS itself. So if you're running iOS 18.0, for example, and iOS 18.0.1 is released, go ahead and update ASAP, because iOS 18.0.1, iOS 18.0.2 will already fix a lot of your issues you're facing right now, including battery. Those very first iOS 18 versions are super important to fix problems like battery drain. So constantly check for updates and update iOS 18. And last but not least, I want to give you one of the most important tips, which is not new, but I always make sure to give this advice. Open up your settings once again. Let's come back here to the very first page, tap on battery, and then go ahead and use low power mode as much as you want. Low power mode is a one button, one toggle feature that actually will help you so much, especially on those very early days of iOS 18, of any major software update. So use low power mode, don't worry about it, it's not gonna damage your iPhone or anything like that. There are no problems with using low power mode. It's only gonna give you benefits. Of course, your iPhone will get a little bit slower, some of the animations, some of the background app refresh will be reduced, but it'll do everything to save you battery. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video as usual, guys. Bye bye.